This is my E92 Bmw M3, which I bought from a salvage auction for an absolute steal. So last time I bought this car from a salvage yard after it had been written off by the insurer as a total loss, and then I tried to rebuild it in under 24 hours. And if you haven't seen that, I'll leave a link just up there in the top right for you if you want to go and take a look, and you can always come back here after or not, it's up to you. So last time we did the majority share of it, but there are still a few things wrong with it which we need to try and sort out. And as you can imagine, with this being a salvage car and on, well, 207,000 miles, this car isn't exactly in the best condition. So today, that's what we're going to try and sort out while we're waiting for the MOT. Now, I know on camera it may look like it's okay and it's just a bit dusty, but in reality there are actually quite a few things on it that we need to fix. And it's absolutely disgusting on the inside, so it's well overdue a proper clean and a good detail. Get a load of this. Yeah, this thing definitely needs a clean. That's absolutely rancid. Now today we're going to try and restore it to its former glory. As you can probably tell, it's absolutely filthy and it's definitely seen better days. The paintwork is going to need some TLC and a few defects sorting. Like here, 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 like here. Yeah, so you get the picture. I could keep going on. Anyway, let's move on with it. Okay, so let's get started by cleaning off all of the grime that's on it. Right, so we're going to start off by going over the whole car with some all-purpose cleaner to dig into the dirt before we actually touch the paint with a wash mitt. This helps us get into all of the trickier areas and remove the worst of the grime. So this is just a pre-wash, which is going to be better when you're washing the car if you've got a build-up of grime and dirt all over it, which this one does. Now that we've covered the whole car, we're going to leave it to bite into all of that grime for around 3 to 4 minutes. And now, while we're waiting for that, I'm also going to do the engine bay. It's something that I just like to do, especially if you're going to be working under there. And well, being a BMW, I can imagine I'll be under there quite a bit. Okay, so now we've let that dig in for a few minutes, we just need to give it a quick hose down under here, and then the same around the rest of the car. And already under here, it looks loads better. Okay, so now we've washed the worst of it off. If we look at the bodywork, usually if the bodywork in cars is any good, it will start to bead. And on this, you can see there's absolutely no beading, which is something that we'll rectify in a bit. But first of all, I'm going to try and sort the headlights out because one's yellow and one's clear, and I think they could do with a bit of a refresh. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get started sanding both of these down, starting at 600, working my way through all of the grits to about 2000, and later on we'll lacquer them, which doesn't actually go quite right, as you'll see. So the reason we're doing this is to try and remove some of the smaller stone chips on it, as well as the layer of yellow that's built up over time on the headlight. And I'll say it now, if there's any previous layer of protection, you want to make sure that you get all of it off. Right, so we'll come back to the headlights later, but now we're going to give this car a proper wash down, just with some car shampoo, and then we're going to hose it off, and then we'll be able to see how bad this bodywork actually is. And we're also going to clean the wheels, but thankfully they don't need too much either, as they're already pretty clean. Already though, after just a quick wash down, this car is looking one hell of a lot better, but we can't really tell that until it's properly washed down and dried down. So let's dry this car down and take a look at the bodywork. Okay, so after a quick clean, it does look a lot better, but the problem we have now is that we can see how bad the paint actually is, and a lot of defects are starting to show up on it. So it might be hard to tell on camera, but here you can see a little defect in the bonnet. That might be a reaction to something. Loads of little scratches and scuffs all over it, which is one of the main reasons we're doing this. On the plus side though, under here it does look a lot cleaner, so when I'm doing the rod bearings and giving it a service, it's going to be a lot nicer to do. And we can also see loads of little small dents in it which need to be fixed. So there's about 3 or 4 here and a few others around the car. So looking at this in the light, you can see there are loads of deep scratches in this paint which we need to sort out. And now you can see down here how badly scratched this paint is. One of the worst bits has to be this bit here where it's quite deeply scratched. Some of it we might get away with polishing, the rest of it we might have to touch up a bit and wet and dry sand to blend in. Another thing we can tell on the rear is the paint has gone really flat, and the tips we might just get away with cleaning up. And I've also noticed these are starting to corrode quite a bit under here and then don't look great, so I might replace these. But before we get started with the paint, we're going to let it dry and move on to cleaning out the interior. Inside of here then, we're going to get started by cleaning all of this stuff off the inside, as well as giving it a quick vacuum, and then we'll move on to the more detailed stuff. Right, so after a quick vacuum, it's time to get rid of all of that rubbish. And now that's gone, we're going to clean this off with some all-purpose cleaner and give it a good scrub up, followed off by a steam clean. So that's the worst bit out of the way, now we just need to finish off the rest of it. Already inside of here it's starting to look a lot better, so now all that's left to do is carpets and the boot, and then we'll take a look. Right, so the inside's done and this looks worlds apart now, so time to move on and sort the outside out. I'm going to start off on the outside by sorting this crack out. What I'm going to do is drill a really small hole at the end of these, so if you get a crack and drill a hole in the end of it, it's not going to spread any further. Once I've done that, I'm going to pull it out a bit, put a bit of epoxy in here and let that dry. And while I'm at it, I might put a bit of epoxy on these corners here in the carbon splitter. I'm undecided if I'm going to keep it yet, but I'm going to put some on here while I've got some, just to try and hold it together a bit better. Okay, so it doesn't look great right now, but we are going to sand it back, flatten it back, blend it in and paint it. And this bit is literally just me experimenting. I've not got much to lose because it's already starting to chip away and break off. Okay, so with those sorted out, now we need to sort out that scuff at the back. So down here, this scuff is actually pretty deep and it's near enough through the plastic. So what I'm going to do is sand it down a little bit here, a little bit there. We're going to put some bumper filler in, let that dry overnight, and we'll do similar where we paint it and blend it in. Okay, so to sort some of these deeper scratches out, what I've had in mind is I've got carbon black, which is very similar colour, so E46M3 colour, not far off at all. Might mix out with a bit of clear, try and combine the two, and go over some of these lightly, let that dry, and then we can wet and dry sand it down, and that should probably just about hide them. Not going to lie, not sure how it's going to go, but we'll see how we get on. Okay, so that's all done now and it does blend in pretty well, so we're going to let this dry overnight and get back to it tomorrow. Okay, so this is dried now and it's actually a really good match and it's quite close. So in a minute we're going to sand that down, but first I'm going to move over here and get started sanding this filler down so that we can put some primer down and then we can get the paint out of the way. And of course I'll do the same here. Right, so now that the filler's dry, I'm going to sand it down with some 80 grit sandpaper to smooth it off a bit. Now that it's all roughed out, I'm going to go over it again with a bit more filler to get rid of any pinholes that are left. Now, it might not look great, but it's just to get rid of any pinholes that are left on it, and I'm going to do exactly the same on the front wing. So while I'm waiting for it to dry, I'm going to get started masking it up, ready for the paint. Now that it's all masked off, I'm going to go down to 400 grit sandpaper and a few guide coats to sand down to make sure it's going to be nice and flat when we get that first coat of primer on there. So the guide coat is just a thin layer of paint to go over the top so that when you sand it down, it gives you a rough guide on high and low spots. So this gives you a better guide and a flatter surface when it comes to paint. So now we just need to give it a wipe down, a little bit more masking around the edge that will pull up to blend in later. It might not look great right now, but it was actually pretty damaged, so it's fairly flat and we're ready to put the first coat of paint down. Now you might be thinking that's a funny colour primer, but this is actually isolated sealer, and what this does is it's going to create a seal to reduce the chance of a paint reaction from the new paint and the paint that's already on the car. Now we need to peel the edges up a bit so that when we've got the primer down we can blend it in. So now I've got the primer down, we're going to leave that to dry overnight, and then tomorrow we're going to blend it in. So to blend it in, we're going to peel away a bit of the tape and then sand it down into the base coat so that when we put the next layer of base coat down, this will create a blend and you won't be able to see the line on it. Now that it's blended in, we're going to give it a quick wipe down, mask it up again, and then get some base coat down. Now that we've got base coat down and we've let it dry for about 30 minutes, we're going to peel the tape back a bit more and get the final coat of lacquer down. Now that's all done, it looks pretty good, so we just need to let it dry. So there we go, the blend on it isn't bad at all. It doesn't look perfect right now because of course we need to let it dry and then we can start to flatten it down and polish, and it should turn out pretty well. Meanwhile though, I'm going to get started with that rear quarter. So I'm going to start off by sanding it down with some 1200 grit sandpaper to remove the high spots from all that touch up. After doing this and wiping it down, I've noticed there are still a few small marks on it. So I'm going to touch it one more time, follow it up with a heat gun, and then we'll take a look. Now after doing this a second time, the white marks aren't visible anymore. So now it looks okay. We're going to sand it down with some 2000 grit, followed up by 2500 grit. After that we're going to polish it up and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, so that's done now and it looks like glass. Absolutely perfect, no more scratches in it. I think it's turned out pretty well. So now that's done, I'm going to carry on going down this quarter here. I'm not going to wet and dry sand the whole panel of course, but if I do get any deep scratches, I'm going to do the same thing again. So yeah, pretty much exactly the same again, touching it all up, sanding it down, and it does actually turn out pretty good. So I'm just going to get on with it and then we'll take a look. So all the marks are filled in now, all we need to do is sand it back down, polish it up, and then take a look. And with that all sorted, we're going to finish off the rear end, do the roof, and then we'll move on to the wing. Up until this point it was all going so well, but now things took a turn for the worse. Down here it looks absolutely perfect then, so what we need to do now to complete this side is just blend this little bit in around the edge. So I'm going to start sanding away at it, and I wish it was that easy because I actually ended up sanding way too far through the clear coat. And to top it off, my camera also died at this point. The only thing I could think of doing was sanding it all back down and just completely re-lacquering the wing. So that's exactly what I did, and to top all this off as well, the lacquer that I had was out of date. So straight away I ran into issues when I was trying to put the paint down. but this was my only option, so I had to give it a go, and no matter what I tried, it just came out like orange peel. So yeah, things don't always go to plan, but I've tried to make the best out of, well, a bad situation, and when that dries, there's a bit of orange peel, so we'll flat it down and sand it down in a few days time. But for now, got other bits to move on to, but it is what it is. Right, so as for the missing tow and eye cover, I've got a brand new one from BMW for about £20. So now what we need to do is put some basic on it, put some lacquer on it, and we can clip it straight in. So onwards and upwards, these things happen. So we're going to paint this tow and eye cover, leave it to dry, and then we're going to move on to the bonnet. So we'll get started on the bonnet by giving it a quick clean down, and then we'll try and get those dents out. Right, so the first thing that I'm going to do in this bonnet then is try and remove these 3-4 little dents down here. It's quite hard to see from that angle, but I'm going to put the camera in a better angle so you can see what I'm doing. Glue gun basically with a little dent attachment on it, so we're going to screw it on, glue it on, try and pull it out that way, and hopefully it should get rid of the worst of it. So let's get the glue gun out and see what we can do about it. Right, so what I'm using is a special glue for body work, and what we're going to do is clamp it down, and as we tighten it up, you can see it literally just lifts the dent out, and then we just need to clean it off and keep going at it. So we just need to repeat this a few times to keep pulling the dent up until it's fairly level. So we'll skip through to the end and you can have a look. Okay then, so after a few goes, as you can see, there's literally nowhere near as bad as they were. Barely even noticeable now, to be fair. You can see with a light, it would usually pick them up. Now they're very faint and it's quite hard to tell. So I'm going to do exactly the same on these two. Keep going at it until I pull the worst of it out. Right, so it's pretty much the same. We'll skip through to the end and then we'll try and sort the crease in the door out. Okay, there we go. So now, as you can see, you can barely even tell that they're there. I know it's not perfect, but they're a lot better than what they were. Right, so now what I'm going to try and do is here, there's like a little dent that's kind of ingrained in the seal of the door. So I'm going to just try and tap that out with a hammer, but also with like a little plastic thing. So I'm going to try and tap it. You can see if I can get the worst of that out. Right, so just by doing that, it's already taken the biggest crease of it out and it's not too noticeable now, so not a bad way of doing it at all. Maybe not preferred method, but seems to work okay. It's pretty straight, job done. And I was going to polish this all up and show you down the side and down here, but I'm just not going to have time tonight, so that'll have to wait till tomorrow. We can do like a side by side. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to mask around here, around the headlights, and then we're going to put some lacquer on each one of them, and then tomorrow we'll pull it off, mop that up and do side by side, and we'll get a better look at them dents. So let's get them cleared up. So after getting all the masking done and clearing them up, I used some UV lacquer to go over the headlights, and much to my regret, after doing this and putting the first coat of lacquer down, I ran into another issue as usual. So unfortunately the headlights haven't gone to plan, and after leaving them to dry, what I think's happened is it's reacted with whatever was left on them, and it started cracking and hazing a bit, and they look dreadful now. They actually look worse than what they were like. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to sand them completely back down again and just go at it again. And I think I'm just going to use clear lacquer now instead of the UV lacquer, because I thought I was being smart using that, thinking it will never go yellow. But for what it's worth, if it's going to go like that again, I might as well just use normal lacquer. But you don't know if you don't try, so just going to have to sand them down again and just re-lacquer them. Anyway, meanwhile, we can be moving on with the bonnet. So I'm not entirely sure why it's reacted, but I think it could be to do with what was left on them, or it's the first time I've used the UV lacquer, but I thought I'd give it a go. So it is what it is. Anyway, we're going to polish the bonnet up, and then we'll take a quick look at it, and you can see how different it actually is. Right, so now you can see this is a lot more glossy than the other side. Even giving it a wipe down, you can see how flat that looks compared to this side. I'm going to do the same on the other side, but first I need to touch up those deeper scratches as well as a little bit on the front bumper. So now we'll give it a polish and put some ceramic coat down to protect it. So the bonnet's done, now back to the headlights. So after sanding them back down again and giving them another coat of clear lacquer, we'll leave them overnight and take a look in the morning. Right, there we go. So after letting these dry overnight, they look absolutely perfect now. Second time around, we got it just about right. So if you're going to do it, don't use the UV lacquer, just use normal lacquer. So let's get the masking tape off now and finish off the front bumper. And I know the number plates on it now don't exactly look great and they don't do it any favours, but for now they're going to have to do, so I'll get some more at a later date, but for now we'll leave them on. So the front bumper's done, it's just time for that last finishing touch. Okay, so that's pretty much the front end done. The only thing left to do, of course, is sort that wing out and a couple of other finishing touches. And the main thing we've got left to do is these shadow line trims just around the outside of the windows. I got another pair of these from a breaker for just 30 quid for the pair, which isn't bad at all. I know they're a bit faded, but when we've put them on, we'll give them a quick polish up and they should look pretty good. So we'll get these old ones off, put them on, give them a quick clean up, and we'll have a look. So to get these old ones off, I think I need to pull this down here. There's a few tabs with a little trim tool, and we'll pry it off, and we should be able to pull it back and just take it off the back and literally pop the new one straight in. So just under this rubber bit here, there are a few clips which we can pry away with the trim tool, get it off, and we can work our way back. Right, so it's only held in by these little white clips here, and these go into those black grommets, but I've left these in at the back because they're quite tricky to get in. So I've just gone under here, popped it up with a pry tool, so I've got another spare one because that one broke off. And I'm literally just going to slide it on the back, and then we'll pop it in along the front, and that should be it. So it was a little bit fiddly trying to get it back into place, and unfortunately I broke another clip off, but thankfully I have quite a few to spare, so I swapped it out and then put it back into place. There we go, that weren't too bad at all, was it? So now what I'm going to do, give it a quick polish and it should look good as new. Okay, there we go, so one side down, no more corrosion, that does look a lot better, and you can see when it was detailed before or polished, they'd already gone away at the edge of it as well, and you can see a horrible silver line there. So let's carry on and do the other side. Right, so they're both done now. They look a hell of a lot better. There's no more corrosion, no little silver strip around the edge, but there's one thing I nearly forgot we need to do, and that's the exhaust. So there's a lot of carbon build-up on them. We'll give them a quick clean up with some steel wool, get them out of the way, and we'll finish off with a wing. So yeah, I nearly forgot about the exhaust, so we'll get that cleaned up now quickly. So a bit of steel wool, bit of polish, bit of alloy wheel cleaner, and it should clean them up pretty well. So let's get on with it. Right, there we go. So of course they're not going to be perfect, they're a little bit pitted, but I've cleaned the worst of it off, and I'm not going to sit here for hours on end scrubbing all the stuff off the inside, and for all we know I might be changing that exhaust. So let's carry on with the wing. Right, so the wing's all done now, it's all polished up, and it does match the rest of the car. The only downside now is when I was polishing it, I noticed this crack just ever so slightly reappeared beneath the paint. It's not anywhere near as noticeable, to be fair, so it's not awful. 2 metre test, it passes okay. So we're going to give the rest of the car a quick wash down now, because I always tend to find that when you're doing all this bodywork stuff, all these horrible little white marks tend to show up in places like that. So we're going to give it one last wash down, and then we'll take a look. There we go then. So this literally looks well apart to when we started out with it, and I don't think you'd ever even think this car being through salvage yard now. Of course, we still have plenty of things to do to it, and next up we need to take this car through its MOT, and I'm not too sure if it's going to pass. I've done a few basic checks, but we'll have to find out, which is something that we'll cover next time. Anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you've tapped down below, you've hit subscribe, and of course I'll catch you next video. See you in a bit.